The Coruscant skyline glittered like a field of stars as rain hammered against the transparasteel windows of the penthouse apartment. Inside, two figures sat in darkness, their silhouettes barely visible against the city's glow. The younger man, Sheev Palpatine, poured another glass of Anduin wine for his master, his movements precise, calculated. Darth Plagueis the Wise reclined in his chair, the Mun's elongated head tilted back, eyes half closed in apparent contentment. "To your speech tomorrow in the Senate, Chancellor in waiting." Palpatine smiled, but behind those pale eyes, murder stirred. As his master drank deeply, Palpatine's fingers twitched. Lightning crackled between them, not the blue-white fury of Sith lightning, but something darker, more ancient. The assassination attempt he'd perfected in secret, designed to stop a being's midi-chlorians from functioning, to sever their connection to the Force itself. The attack struck like a serpent. Plagueis convulsed, the wine glass shattered on the floor. His breathing became ragged, labored. Palpatine stood over him, watching with cold satisfaction as his master's chest rose and fell, then stilled. But in the deepest recessions of his cells, in the very fabric of his being, Darth Plagueis smiled. His mastery over life and death ran deeper than his apprentice could imagine. As Palpatine left the apartment, confident in his victory, microscopic midi-chlorians began their work. Heart tissue regenerated, neural pathways reconnected. The Mun's consciousness, dispersed across the Force itself, slowly coalesced back into his body. Hours later, Darth Plagueis opened his eyes to an empty room and a new understanding. The rule of two had been tested, and his apprentice had passed, or so Sidious believed. In the shadows of the galaxy, Plagueis became a ghost of his former self. Not dead, but transformed. He liquidated his public holdings through intermediaries. His vast fortune as Hego Damask disappeared into a labyrinth of shell companies and hidden accounts. The galaxy's financial markets barely noticed the ripple. From a secret facility beneath the ice caves of Megiddo, Plagueis watched through holoscreens and force visions as his former apprentice orchestrated the blockade of Naboo. He observed with scientific interest as Palpatine manipulated the young Queen Amidala, as he pulled the strings of the Trade Federation, as he groomed his new apprentice, the Zabrak warrior Maul. Crude, all rage and physicality, no subtlety, no understanding of the deeper mysteries. Yet he did not interfere. Not yet. This was all part of a grander experiment, one that transcended the petty politics of the Republic. While Sidious sought to rule through fear and manipulation, Plagueis pursued a different path, the complete mastery over death itself, the ultimate evolution of the Sith doctrine. But even in his isolation, Plagueis could not resist one small manipulation. As Maul meditated before his mission to Tatooine, a whisper touched his mind. Ancient, cold, and familiar, yet alien. "Who is your true master, young Zabrak? The one who teaches you to hate, or the one who could teach you to transcend?" Maul's eyes snapped open, his twin hearts racing, but the presence was gone, leaving only doubt in its wake. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Thanks for your continued support. The sands of Tatooine shifted beneath Qui-Gon Jinn's boots as he faced the demon of his nightmares. Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber spun in deadly arcs, each strike fueled by darkside fury. But something was different. The Sith apprentice's movements, usually so precise, carried a tremor of uncertainty. In the shadows of Mos Espa, young Anakin Skywalker watched the duel with eyes that saw more than a child should. The Force swirled around him in patterns that made no sense, whispers of futures that might be, could be, should never be. Plagueis felt the boy's presence from across the galaxy. A vergence in the Force so powerful it made his previous experiments seem like parlor tricks. Here was potential beyond measure, a being conceived by the midi-chlorians themselves. Or was he? Plagueis allowed himself a thin smile. His experiments years ago, his attempts to create life through pure Force manipulation, perhaps they had succeeded after all, just not in the way he'd expected. The duel on Tatooine ended in a draw, both combatants retreating, but the seed of doubt in Maul's mind had taken root. During the long journey to Naboo, he meditated on that voice, that presence that felt older than his master, deeper than the rage that fueled him. In the plasma refinery complex of Theed, destiny approached on swift feet. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn advanced through the laser gates, Maul backing away with predatory grace. But as the gates cycled closed, separating master from apprentice, that voice returned to Maul's mind. Strike down the old one, yes, but ask yourself, for whose glory? Sidious treats you as a tool. I would have made you a god. Maul's concentration shattered for just an instant. Qui-Gon's lightsaber found its mark not through the Zabrak's chest, but through his shoulder. As Maul fell back, wounded but alive, Obi-Wan burst through the gates. The battle turned into a desperate three-way dance. ending only when Maul, bleeding and broken, plummeted into the reactor shaft. But even as he fell, even as the young Kenobi cradled his dying master, Maul's final thought was not of failure or rage. It was a question: who spoke to me? In his ornate office overlooking the Senate district, Chancellor Palpatine sat in meditation. The dark side flowed through him like a river of shadow, but lately that river felt observed. Something watched from the depths, ancient and patient. Impossible. I felt his life end. I severed his connection to the Force itself. But the feeling perished. In quiet moments between Senate sessions, in the dark hours before dawn, he felt eyes upon him. Not the fumbling Force senses of the Jedi, too blinded by their own light to see the darkness before them. This was something else. Something familiar. Palpatine intensified his security, both physical and mystical. He placed ancient Sith artifacts around his office, items that would detect any Force presence. He consulted holocrons, seeking techniques to mask one's survival. And all the while, he pushed forward with his grand plan: the creation of a clone army, the corruption of the Republic, the fall of the Jedi Order. On Serrano, Count Dooku meditated in his solar. The former Jedi Master had left the Order, disillusioned by their complacency and the Senate's corruption. He sought a new path, a way to bring order to a chaotic galaxy. It was then that the Visitor came. Not in person, that would be too crude. Instead, Dooku's meditation was interrupted by a presence that seemed to rise from the very stones of his ancestral home. A hologram flickered to life, but not of light. This was composed of shadow itself, a figure whose features remained hidden, but whose voice carried the weight of eons. Count Dooku, I am Darth Plagueis. You know of me from the forbidden histories of the Jedi archives. I offer you truth where others only offer deception. Dooku's hand moved to his lightsaber, but he didn't ignite it. The Sith are extinct. Destroyed a millennia ago. The Sith evolved. My apprentice seeks to use you as a tool in his war. He will promise you power, position, purpose, but in the end, you will be discarded like Maul before you. I offer something different: knowledge, the secrets of life and death, the ability to reshape not just governments, but existence itself. Over the following months, as the Separatist movement gained momentum, Dooku found himself serving two masters, one who believed him a royal apprentice, and one who treated him as a colleague in a grander experiment. Through encrypted holocom channels and an ancient Sith meditation technique, Plagueis shared fragments of his knowledge. Not enough to make Dooku a threat, but enough to make him question everything. The galaxy burned with the fires of war. Clone troopers, bred from the genetic template of Jango Fett, battled droid armies across 1,000 worlds. The Jedi, forced from their role as peacekeepers into that of generals, felt the dark side growing stronger with each battle, each death, each compromise of their principles. Anakin Skywalker had grown from a promising Padawan into a legendary warrior. The hero with no fear, they called him. But in his dreams, fear found him nonetheless. Visions of his mother's death, of Padme's suffering, of a future shrouded in shadow and flame. It was during the campaign on Rendili that the dreams changed. Instead of death and suffering, Anakin found himself standing in a vast library made of living light. Shelves stretched to infinity, each containing not books, but crystallized moments of understanding. And there, between the stacks, stood a figure in dark robes. Young Skywalker, the Chosen One, though chosen by whom and for what purpose remains to be seen. You're a Sith. I am a seeker of truth. The Jedi tell you that the dark side leads only to destruction. Sidious, yes. I know, you felt his presence, circling you like a patient predator. Would tell you it leads to power. Both are limited in their vision. I don't need your lies. Then accept my truths. Your mother died because the Jedi taught you that attachment leads to the dark side, so you stayed away. Your wife, yes, I know of her, lives in fear because you must hide your love. Tell me, young Skywalker, what has the light brought you but chains? The Jedi Code is a half-truth built on fear, just as the Sith Code is a half-truth built on passion. But what if there was a third way? What if instead of denying death or fearing it, we could master it? Your mother need not have died. Your wife need not live in shadow. The galaxy need not burn while hypocrites in robes debate philosophy. Anakin woke with a gasp, Padme stirring beside him, but the words echoed in his mind, planting seeds that would grow in darkness. The Separatist flagship Invisible Head groaned under the assault of Republic forces. In the observation tower, Count Dooku faced his executioners, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. But as lightsabers clashed, as Obi-Wan fell unconscious and Anakin pressed his attack with unprecedented fury, Dooku felt a presence he had not sensed in months. Now, show them the truth. As Anakin's blade scissored toward his neck, Dooku spoke. Plagueis lives. The words were quiet, meant only for Anakin, but they struck like thunder. The young Jedi's killing blow hesitated for just an instant, enough for Dooku to force push him back. What did you say? Your master, the one you murdered, He has been watching, waiting. He knows what you are, Sidious. Palpatine's eyes blazed with such fury that even Anakin stepped back. Lightning erupted from the Chancellor's fingers. Not the measured bolts he had planned to use to turn Anakin, but wild, desperate strikes that turned Dooku to ash in seconds. The ravings of a defeated traitor. But Anakin had seen the fear in those yellow eyes. He had felt the truth in Dooku's words. Later, in the depths of Coruscant's industrial sector, Palpatine descended alone. Past the abandoned factories, through the ancient Sith shrines buried beneath millennia of construction, to a place where darkseid pooled like water in a deep well. And there, seated on the throne of living stone, waited Darth Plagueis. My apprentice, come to finish what you started? You should be dead. Death is a limited concept. I have moved beyond such constraints, as I tried to teach you before your ambition outpaced your wisdom. The battle that followed shook the foundations of Coruscant itself. Not a duel of lightsabers. Such crude weapons were beneath them. This was a war of pure force energy, of willpower made manifest. Palpatine's lightning met Plagueis' draining touch. The younger Sith's rage crashed against the Elder's cold certainty. Reality itself seemed to bend around them. Past and future blurred together. In one moment, they stood in the penthouse where the assassination had failed. In another, they witnessed the birth of the galaxy itself. Through it all, one truth emerged. Palpatine was stronger in the dark side, but Plagueis was the dark side, had made himself one with it in ways his apprentice could barely comprehend. As their battle reached its crescendo, a new presence entered the chamber. Anakin Skywalker, drawn by the disturbance in the Force, arrived to find his mentor locked in combat with a being of shadow and wisdom. Anakin, help me! This is the Sith Lord we've been searching for. Both of us are Sith, young one. Your precious Chancellor has played you for a fool, but whereas he offers you chains disguised as power, I offer you freedom through understanding. You're lying. The Jedi fear the dark side because they fear themselves. Sidious embraces it because he fears everyone else, but true mastery comes from fearing nothing, not even death. Your mother could live again. Your children, yes, I sense them growing within your wife, need not face the fate you've foreseen. Don't listen to him. He's trying to confuse you. Strike him down and I will show you the true power of the dark side. Anakin stood paralyzed by choice. Two paths diverged before him, both shrouded in shadow, both promising salvation. In the end, he chose as he always had, with his heart rather than his head. His lightsaber ignited and he leaped into the battle, but not at Plagueis. The blade pierced Palpatine's defenses, weakened as they were by this duel with his former master. The Chancellor's eyes widened in shock and betrayal as Anakin's weapon found its mark. Why? Because he never lied to me. You did. Every word, every moment, all manipulation. As Palpatine fell, his body already beginning to decay from the dark side energies he had harbored, Plagueis approached the young Jedi. You expect me to kneel now? To call you master? No. The age of masters and apprentices has ended. The rule of two has served its purpose. What comes next is something new, something greater. And what's that? Evolution. The Jedi seek to preserve. The Sith seek to dominate, but life itself seeks to transcend. That's the lesson I would teach, not to you as my apprentice, but to the galaxy as its healer. The Clone Wars ended not with genocide, but with revelation. When Anakin turned to the Jedi Temple, he brought with him truths that shattered 1,000 years of dogma. The Sith had not been destroyed, they had been hiding in plain sight. The Senate had been corrupted not by bureaucracy, but by a Sith Lord's design. Some Jedi refused to accept these truths. They fled to the Outer Rim, clinging to their orthodox ways. But others, led by masters like Yoda and Mace Windu, began to question everything they had believed. If the dark side could produce a being like Plagueis, one who sought knowledge over power, transcendence over domination, then perhaps the Force was not the binary thing they had imagined. Plagueis himself vanished after Palpatine's death, but his influence remained. Hidden caches of knowledge appeared throughout the galaxy, not Sith teachings of rage and hatred, but something newer, older, deeper. Instructions on healing that surpassed anything in the Jedi archives. Meditations that touched the very fabric of life itself. Anakin Skywalker never became Darth Vader. Instead, he became something unprecedented, a Force user who walked between light and shadow, using passion without being consumed by it, maintaining attachment without being destroyed by loss. When his children were born, Luke and Leia entered a galaxy not torn between Republic and Empire, but united in its diversity of thought. On Dagobah, Yoda sat in meditation, no longer in exile, but in contemplation. Before him shimmered a holocron unlike any other, neither Jedi blue nor Sith red, but a deep violet that seemed to contain every color and none. Right you were, narrow our vision had become, but dangerous still your path remains. All paths are dangerous. The question is whether we walk them in wisdom or ignorance. The galaxy has been given a second chance. What it does with that chance, That is beyond even my ability to foresee. As years turned to decades, the rigid structures of Jedi and Sith gave way to something more complex, more nuanced. Force users emerged who defied easy categorization. Some sought to preserve Plagueis' teachings of transcendence. Others warped them into new forms of tyranny. The galaxy had not found peace, perhaps it never would, but it had found possibility. And in the shadows between the stars, in the spaces between life and death, Darth Plagueis the Wise continued his great work, not as a master seeking apprentices, but as a teacher whose classroom was existence itself. He had failed to prevent death. He had succeeded in something far greater, showing the galaxy that death was not the end, but merely another beginning. The Skywalker legacy would continue, not as slaves to prophecy, but as architects of their own destiny. And if sometimes, in quiet moments, they heard the whispers of wisdom from beyond the veil of mortality, well, perhaps that too was part of the lesson. For in the end, Plagueis had achieved the impossible. He had made the Sith into something they had never been before, teachers rather than tyrants, guides rather than gods, and in doing so, he had ensured that his legacy would outlive empires, outlast republics, and endure until the last star burned cold in the infinite galaxy. The rule of two was broken, the rule of all had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have become, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.